Have you ever thought about the shape of your dream, the shape of your relationship to the divine or to transcendent reality? What do I mean by this? Literally, for example, I once knew someone who said, by the time he was 40, he basically had achieved everything that he set out to achieve. Like, can you imagine? He ran out of dreams. What? And so with some people like that, there's like a really clear kind of like before and after. And in this guy's case, like I said, he kind of ran out of dreams and then he didn't know what to do. Like he didn't have a purpose. He felt kind of boredom. And so in a case like that, someone's been able to like anchor in a certain set of realities for themselves and achieve the things that they had imagined, and they made that a reality. So they made what they imagined a reality, which is in itself a type, it's that is an aspect of spiritual realization to an extent, because you're bringing into actuality something that wasn't yet. You are, this is your aspect as a co-creator, right? And then for other people, it's kind of like the exact opposite. Or, well, there's still like a clear before and after, but the after isn't landing into a place where you have no purpose or no perspective and now you feel bored and you kind of feel empty, but rather, maybe someone had a type of accident, they had a near death experience or some other type of like deep kind of conversion experience, basically. And then afterwards, they are full of realization. They're full of a new presence basically in their life, and they feel full of meaning and full of purpose. And not that they necessarily weren't prior to that, but their sense of purpose may have changed or greatly expanded. And so there's so many really cool accounts of like who has had types of near death experiences, like Anita Morjani. And so I just want you guys to think about like the shape of your own relationship to the divine. And by that I mean this transcendent, translational aspect of how you bring your imagination into actualization, into reality. So you do this all the time. You've done this for your entire life. Maybe it's just with small things, but you have set goals that you have achieved for yourself. You have set plans that you've been able to put into play. So you have made many things come into reality. So I just want you to think about the string of those things. Like, what things have you been able to actualize? And many of those will be mundane, but then you can like take it up a notch and think about some of the greater things that you have aimed at or attempted to actualize. And maybe some of these have not come to fruition yet, or they did not. So I just want you to think about the whole spectrum, the whole variety of all of these things that you've been able to bring into actualization, or that maybe, what happened with these? Was it interrupted? Was your process interrupted, so to speak? And to really like chart out the sequence of these cycles. Were they cycles? Were they just really, is it a very clear narrative? Like, you set out to do a certain set of goals and then it just, you put in the hard work and it happened. Has it been really like simple and linear for you? Like, what's your pattern of actualizing a greater reality for yourself? And I guess I'm asking this because what it really gets at is another facet of the importance and role of integration in our life. Because, and you've heard me talk so much about this because this is central to my work. This is my central preoccupation. And what this is showing us, this pattern of how you're able to actualize the divine in your life, it will show you, for example, the level and quality of your integration, or whether there's this aspect of fragmentation that maybe you weren't aware of, because you need to like look historically to see the shape of this pattern. For example, it may be very fragmented. For example, maybe you got really, really close, like many times. Maybe you have a pattern of like getting 80% of the way and then something happens, like something kind of like interrupts or redirects you. And so I just want you to think about that as a sequence and to like kind of lay those all out side by side to really determine what the pattern is, what the cycle is, what the continuity actually beneath this cycle is in terms of like what you invested in, how you invested, what interrupted you. Because what this really comes down to is the interruption in the flow and development of your own consciousness. So there's a process involved here, and it wasn't able to come to fruition. And you're still seeking that. Like this is part of a higher developmental process. And this is what I mean when I'm talking about healing your dreaming function, which I'm going to say more about, because until you do and until you are able to complete that process, like, so there's a good portion of your energy, your psychic energy, your heart energy that is really trapped in that. It's stuck. It hasn't been able to unfold and actualize, like very similarly or analogously to you know, infants or like infant animals, like infant monkeys who were not able to develop vision, or they weren't exposed to the right like developmental environment, you know, those experiments. And basically this is kind of an overlooked area of, I don't know if we would always call it trauma necessarily, but it's this definitely this liminal space between, I mean, it could be caused from trauma for sure, or we may just see this in developmental terms. But basically, the higher stakes involved are that you you won't have integrated this, you won't have met that level of integration, and then this is directly going to relate to you know, your possible like karmic balance, so to speak, because you may need to come back again, like if you don't complete a certain assignment, or if you don't follow through with a certain process, a lesson of learning. So I know this can sound pretty abstract still, but I just want you to think about this pattern for yourself, the history you have here, and try to dig deeper, try to find a deeper continuity with this. So I just recorded a few shorts on this topic of these karmic wheels, which relates to this. And basically, it involves a lot of work on our part, a lot of remembering, because this isn't just about like, you know, a so-called life purpose where maybe we're meant to be in a specific field or something. You know, we're used to thinking on that level in really human terms, but there's a lot more going on here. Like, if you want to think about it in terms of like, you know, just playing notes in within one octave, like there's actually like, there's not even just eight more octaves. There's like whatever 10, 12 more octaves going on here that you should be drawing upon. So I just want you to think about this and like let me know how this resonates with you, how this lands with you, what kind of like work you've already done in this aspect. But this is directly related to the heart center and to the dreaming function, which you largely have to like reappropriate for yourself from our really late modern ideas of just having a kind of like economic function and an economic identity, and you know, people thinking about themselves in terms of brands and all of this, and it's actually accelerating with, you know, all this AI stuff. So let me know how this resonates with you and where you are currently in this type of work, like what you've done for yourself already. And I'll actually just leave you with one more piece here, which is that I think you should try to take like a very, basically a scientific approach to this, a scientific approach to your own biographical history, and like go back and write down the data points of like what age this happened at, how many months you spent investing, what the narrative pattern was. You know, was there a particular person who you perceived, whether or not, you know, this is the way you should understand it in actuality, but was there a specific block that you encountered and then you encountered it again 3 years later? Were these investments associated somehow with specific geographical locations? Is there a geographical pattern involved? I want you to look at your life from that kind of like pseudo objective lens and then see what kinds of patterns emerge and let me know. I would love to hear about this.